Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to the conference. Welcome to Vienna, everyone. I'm very happy to see so many familiar faces, so many people who are interested in macro-level fertility research. And actually, we were excited about this conference right from the time when we were getting the submissions, because we got about 65, I think close to 70 submissions for a conference where we could allocate. We thought some 20 people could do oral presentations, so it was really a big challenge already to be selecting papers for presentations, for posters, and thank you for all of you who submitted. Thank you for all of you who came, and apologies for those of you who were not selected for oral presentation, but it was really tough and we had to make a lot of decisions. Because we got so many exciting high-quality papers, we really made a lot of effort to squeeze in the available time as many as we could. So that's my second and last apology. The program is quite long, especially tomorrow, stretching from 9:30 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon. Today it stretches until 7 in the evening, but that's because we want you to be able to present and you to be able to hear a lot of interesting pieces of research. This conference is, of course, not only about the human fertility database, it's a conference about macro-level fertility trends, fertility across time and space. So we invited people to present their research somehow related to aggregate level fertility, not necessarily linked to the human fertility database. But the conference follows, as Dima mentioned, the tradition of conferences and symposia organized around the human fertility database and focused on the research related to the HFD. I want to thank also to the colleagues at from the Max Planck Institute, Dima, Aiva, and the others for helping us to shape the scientific program, for supporting the conference also financially. That's also very important for us, and for being present here, many of them. I have to say thank you to the administrative team from the VID who has done a wonderful job, and you will be meeting them at the back of this room most of the time. Especially Petra Schmutz, she was behind most of the emails, as you realized probably, and communicating with you all the practicalities. So this conference takes place to a large extent because of her effort. Now, to give you some motivation, sometimes when I say to my wife, some of my friends that I study fertility, they look at me and they say, hey, everyone knows fertility is low and declining, so what is there to study? What do you do all the time? So I put together some slides just to show you some features which I think make it still very exciting to study fertility trends. First of all, if you look at period fertility rates, and we know all the weaknesses of this indicator, look at the continuous decline in period fertility rates in many countries in Europe, also in the United States, which I don't show here, where we always say these are the moderately low fertility rate countries. These are the countries with relatively high fertility rates in the rich countries. But looking in the last 10 years, what's going on, even after the economic recession, these has been remarkable declines in many of them, including Norway, Finland, and Iceland, for instance, to name a few of them. Some of them getting close to the EU average, and Finland actually below the EU average. And this is not the trend everywhere. We can also pull out countries where fertility rates were increasing at the same time, at least based on the total fertility rates, or where they were very unstable, like in Russia, for instance. But big increases in places like Russia, also in Hungary, quite remarkable increases also in Austria, in Germany. So it's not all countries going the same direction, and we see a curious kind of convergence to some extent in total fertility rates across Europe and across rich countries in general. The outcome, you see some reactions to this trend in some of the Nordic newspapers. You wouldn't expect that some years ago. Record low fertility rate raises concern. low birth rate approaching epidemics. These are the titles of some news from the Nordic countries. I mean, who would have thought about that 10 or 15 years ago? We have also some other possible reasons or some other possible news. This is from The Guardian 2 days ago. 4 million British workers live in poverty. So the fact that more people work now, that the labor market seems to be functioning much better than some years ago, doesn't necessarily mean that young people have income and means which they consider sufficient to start a family. And this may be one out of many trends to study and consider. If we compare total fertility rates of different countries, we can find very interesting trends in some places. You can look at Norway and Germany, for instance. Always, Germany used to be lower in the last 3-4 decades, considerably lower very often, and suddenly you get a convergence in the last 3-5 years. Why? This might be one of the topics we could discuss here. Could be differential tempo effects. It seems that fertility is postponed more intensively nowadays in the Nordic countries. But why is it postponed more in the Nordic countries and not in German-speaking countries, for instance? So there are a lot of things we don't know. There are a lot of things we can research. There are a lot of things we can discuss. Another feature of fertility trends, they are unstable in many countries. See the trend in Russia. Huge increases and then suddenly a kind of small crash in the last 2 years. The last year is an estimate based on the preliminary data so far for 2018. Look at Korea. In economically good times, Korean fertility, total fertility rate is falling dramatically in the last 3 years, despite the government enacting new and new family-friendly measures and family-friendly policies in the last decade. And especially Koreans are very puzzled about why this is happening. Again, a lot of things to research, a lot of things to discuss. The last thing I want to mention, the family context of childbearing is changing as well, and it's not going one direction in every country. The share of births outside marriage is still increasing in many places, including the whole European Union, but it has been very stable or stagnating in many Nordic countries like Sweden. It was declining slightly in the United States, and it was falling quite rapidly in Russia and some Eastern European countries. Again, an interesting trend we may like to study and discuss more. Now getting to the last few slides about the conference program for today and for tomorrow. So today we will have 2 exciting keynotes starting right after its opening. The first is by Mikko Merskila from the Max Planck Institute of Demographic Research in Rostock. The second will be given by Francesco Billari from the Bocconi University, and then we will have a break. Whenever there is a break, since breaks are quite short, we will provide food and drinks just outside of this venue, and there will be 2 tables where you can get something. So feel free to spread around the 2 tables to get something quickly. Then we will have the first regular session, another break, and the second regular session ending at around 7 p.m. We ask all the presenters to stick to the 12 minutes presentation limit so that we have time to discuss their papers during the sessions. Now for tomorrow we start 9:30 in the morning, so quite early I would say. A lunch will be provided here at the venue, so that will be an easy thing to get. And then just after lunch we will have the poster session, the only poster session of the conference, so make sure you will be here and you will have time to see the posters. And after the posters, the first roundtable discussion. The conference will finish at 6 tomorrow, and in the evening there will be a reception at the municipality hall. And if you want, you can walk together in a group. We will give more information about that tomorrow. With that, I would like to finish the opening and invite the first keynote speaker, Mikko.